After years of keeping secrets for someone who had power over me, I finally found the courage to walk into their office and break that silence. Something fierce inside me refused to be contained any longer. I was done protecting someone else's reputation at the cost of my own truth. When I got back to my car afterward, everything I'd been holding in tore out of me. And in that moment of complete emotional release, I felt every muscle in my body working to carry my sound. Trauma and healing and power became tangible entities moving through my voice at the same time, revealing a depth and substance my voice had never felt before. Something just clicked. All my years of vocal technique and training had been building towards something more profound and functional, and what I stumbled upon was a truth that had been there all along. A simple yet powerful truth, that the voice is fundamentally emotion in motion. This is the wisdom of the voice, and I'm Chelsea Edwardson. Today we're going to dive into what I call the emotional physiology of the voice, the science of feeling becoming sound, and what becomes possible when you understand this symbiotic relationship. Let's begin. It might sound simple, but it's not small. We breathe to express. We use sound to express. Let's unpack this. Imagine someone you care about, your child, your partner, your friend, is about to step into traffic and doesn't see the car coming. What happens? You don't think, you don't prepare, you don't set the diaphragm up for the act, you just yell. That sound, urgent, powerful, perfectly projected, comes out without a second thought. The fear creates the exact coordination of posture, pressure, jaw position, and diaphragmatic support necessary for the sound. It's instantaneous. Your body knows exactly what to do. This is what I often demonstrate in voice lessons, and while it can be startling, it's the clearest example of how effortless vocal power can be when we take our conscious mind out of the equation. If you have the space and privacy right now, I encourage you to try making that sound yourself. Just a quick, "Hey!" or "Stop!" Notice what happens in your body. How does your core engage? How does your breath respond? How does the sound cut through space? And how does it feel different from your regular speaking voice? What you just experienced or imagined is how emotion creates projection and resonance on command. Your body expresses outwardly what you feel inwardly through your posture, your breathing patterns, your muscle coordination, and ultimately through the sound, the culmination of all these elements. Your body is your instrument, and your instrument is shaped moment by moment by your emotions. We cannot separate body from mind from spirit. As sentient beings, everything about us, our breath, our sound, our presence, is signal. And when we understand this, we unlock the incredible power of the voice as our channel. This is why traditional voice lessons can actually end up getting in the way of our progress. Let me be clear. I'm not saying mechanics don't exist. Of course, there are physical coordinations happening when you use your voice. Your diaphragm moves, your larynx adjusts, your resonators shape the sound, and more. But those mechanics aren't the root. They're the result. Emotion is what triggers all that physical coordination naturally. When you begin with technique in isolation, you're working backwards from the natural emotional intelligence that drives it. A lot of vocal pedagogy has evolved from Western classical music, creating a foundation based on technical precision and measurable standards. Placing this work within institutional settings amplifies the problem, driving it even further away from what we actually need, which is a functional perspective based on emotion and the body. The practice of objectifying and quantifying the voice through grading requires us to separate it from the human, treating the voice as if it exists independently, which results in isolated practices designed to treat and fix the voice. For example, most voice lessons use exercises like scales, slides and arpeggios, interval training, breathing exercises, and specific patterns to build vocal flexibility or strength. And there's nothing wrong with these exercises. In fact, I use them all the time. But without context and on their own, they're a surface-level approach. When we don't understand how emotion drives technique naturally, we miss the visceral connection that can be so transformative. This became really clear to me while doing my field research in Bali, Indonesia. As you might recall from episode 3, I was introduced to this incredible human and performer, Bu Candri. I was one of the lucky ones who came from around the world to study voice with her. You may also remember that on that first research trip, we had no shared language. I simply followed her movement, her gesture, and her facial expression, a process of pure embodiment. What really stood out to me was her ability to tap into her emotions. Her performance of anger or sadness was as real as it could get, and sometimes, because there was no spoken exchange, I wasn't sure if she was actually angry at me or not. Once in a while, she'd break her focus and laugh, and we'd start again. We would do this repeatedly, refining the expression each time. It really felt like play, a childlike exploration. In all my years of formal vocal training, I had never experienced such a visceral, embodied, and fun approach to singing and learning. And the interesting part was that I could get all the notes right. I could match all the technique. But it wasn't until my body fully engaged that I, quote-unquote, got it right. And to clarify, that didn't just mean the sound. It was the confluence of body, emotion, and sound that determined how and when we moved forward. It took me a long time to fully digest, but this experience revealed to me the simple but profound truth that you cannot separate technique from feeling. That when the feeling is authentic, the body adjusts accordingly. This is why working with the right coach, someone who can authentically embody and demonstrate emotional expression, is so transformative. By following Bu Candri's lead, I was given the emotional landscape my voice needed to produce an inspired, real sound. Her ability to tap into the spirit of each emotion triggered her external expression, which in turn triggered my body's natural response. This was the foundation of her genius and the gift that informed the future of my voice. Emotion as the source. I get into this a little more in the next episode, but the concept of mirror neurons underscores what was happening here. The idea is that when you see someone express genuine emotion through gesture, facial expression, or sound, neurons in your motor cortex activate as if you were making those movements yourself. Your brain literally begins to coordinate the action just by observing it. This is why, when I demonstrated that yelling scenario at the beginning of this episode, your body could feel it and automatically knew what to do. Your motor cortex was already preparing the coordination before you even consciously decided to make the sound or imagine it. My fierceness, or even the thought of it, triggered yours. By the way, I'm not saying you need to revisit all your traumas to access vocal strength, and I'm definitely not asking you to manufacture fake emotion. There's an important distinction here. You don't need to be angry in this moment, but you do need to connect to what anger feels like in your body from your lived experience. Your body holds the memory of every emotion you've ever felt. When you experience explosive anger, for example, your body learns how that energy lives in the tissue, the way that your core engages, how your breath changes, how your posture shifts. That embodied memory is there, regardless of whether you're actively feeling it or not. So if you want to access the vocal power that comes with that particular emotion, you're not forcing yourself to become actively angry. Instead, you're reconnecting with a genuine experience you've had, where you can find the essence of that energy. Maybe it's a cruel, unjust event you witnessed, or a time when you were betrayed by someone you trusted. Or maybe it's as simple as the long-standing frustration of baristas pronouncing your name wrong when your latte is ready. Whether it's in the past or present, You're accessing the real embodied understanding of the feeling. The key is in finding that authentic pathway into the embodied memory of each emotional state, not forcing yourself to feel things you don't feel. Simply, it's intention. This reveals a symbiotic relationship. Intention can generate emotion, and emotion can generate intention. They feed each other. When you connect with either one authentically, the gesture, breath, and sound align automatically. The body becomes the vehicle. While this might come across as a simple chain of events, the challenge is that most of us have learned to disconnect from our emotional truth. From early childhood, we're taught that certain emotions are unacceptable, that we need to be appropriate, that our feelings are too much or not enough. We learn to perform the emotions others want to see rather than express what we actually feel. That's exactly what was behind that emotional breakdown in my car that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. I had learned to minimize my own feelings, to carry someone else's shame, to abandon my own truth in service of protecting their reputation. This disconnection from my authentic emotion was precisely what kept my voice locked up. Not just metaphorically, but literally. When we disconnect from our emotional truth, we disconnect from the very source of our vocal power. That moment of release, then, wasn't just an emotional breakdown. It was the liberation from years of disconnection. It was my voice finally reconnecting with its truth. All that held emotion, all that suppressed energy, finally had permission to move through sound. And in that reconnection, I felt the emotional physiology in action. This was my voice as it was meant to be, whole and unrestrained. I got to experience this in another, more intentional way when I was recording my first album in New York. This album was, it was partially me processing some of that pain, transforming my experience into something I could reclaim and release. One of the songs I was working on was called Unbroken, and there's this moment where I sing, "I'm ready to be unbroken" over this build. This climactic, intense crescendo with the drums coming unglued required my voice to dig in a way that I hadn't quite ever been able to in the past. I could feel it was the same gut-wrenching, ab-crunching power that had torn out of me in the car. That war cry energy. Yes, me. I'm ready to be unbroken. Can you hear me, universe? That's what this song needed, and it was non-negotiable. My options were, I could keep doing what I'd always done, get in my head about my breathing, or focus on hitting the note just right. Or I could step outside this pattern and make a conscious choice to connect with what those words actually meant to me. Not just the idea of being unbroken, but the real feeling of it. That option required me to face myself, to be totally honest about how that truth felt in my body, to experience that raw emotion. This was me learning to deliberately access that same level of honesty that had poured out of me in the car. And this time, I was choosing it. When I really let myself feel it, the sound, it had grit. It had this texture that couldn't be taught or manufactured. My entire body organized itself around that intention, creating all the nuance, all the flavor, all the body I knew was in there, all without conscious effort. It really felt like I was meeting my voice for the first time. That was a catharsis that I had never felt before, and it changed my vocal life. I went back to that sound clip time and time again. It was really real. My voice existed. That recording became the proof that everything I knew my voice to be had been there all along, not in technique, but in truth. All right, we've been on quite a journey together in this episode. Bit of a winding path, but one that has been moving through and toward the same essential truth. So let me leave you with 5 big ideas that capture what we've discovered here. 1. Your body already knows how to coordinate perfectly when you're emotionally connected. Every time you've yelled in fear or cried in grief, your breath, posture, and sound aligned automatically. Trust this intelligence. 2. Authentic doesn't mean current. It means real. You don't have to be angry to access angry power. You need to reconnect with the embodied memory of anger you've actually experienced. Your tissue holds this. 3. When you start with technique, you're working backwards. Emotion triggers the physical coordination naturally. Isolated exercises miss the visceral connection that makes vocal work transformative. 4. Your voice is energy made audible. When authentic emotion moves through sound, you're not just making noise. Your body was designed to move energy in this way, creating healing and giving others permission to do the same. 5. The blocks aren't in your throat. They're in your relationship to feeling. Every lump, every crack, every stuck moment is your body showing you the emotion-voice-body connection. The real work isn't in learning new mechanics. It's in clearing what's preventing you from accessing what's already there. In our final episode, we'll reveal the deepest truth of our entire journey together. The voice is the incarnation of the spirit, and how metaphor becomes the powerful bridge that makes that possible. If this episode stirred something in you, made you pause, feel some clarity, or think, yes, me too, would you take a moment to share that in a review? Every time someone shares how this work touches them, it affirms the way courage spreads from person to person. Your words become breadcrumbs for others searching for their voice too. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Chelsea Edwardson. See you in episode 6. Oh, and P.S. I actually wanted to study the vocals from Mali, but ended up studying vocals in Bali instead. And no, it wasn't a typo on the plane ticket. I'd gone to shadow a friend in her fieldwork and fell in love with Bu Candri. You should go check her out. I'll put a link or two, or few, into the show notes so you can hear her voice.